Okay, everyone, if you could meander back to your seats, we're going to start in a minute or two. So, welcome to the Canyon Lake POA meeting. Welcome to the new year.
Bang your gavel.
I got to do a gavel. Okay, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone could rise. Harmony, you want to verify quorum?
Yes, sir. Director Nathan?
Here.
Director Berringham?
Here.
Director Odell?
Here.
Director Poland?
Here.
President Welty?
Here.
5 present, quorum met.
Okay, item 2 is approval of the minutes for December 3rd. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted for December 3rd.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Public officials, Jack, you're part of the flood control. Do you have anything to say? About flood control. About flood control, please.
At the present time, we're working with the project with reference to Elsinore's flood situation that they had last year. It cost us almost $8 million to redo that dam and redo the whole valley there. So that's going to hurt our budget quite a bit this year, but we did get it all done, and we are in, I think, good shape. Fortunately, we only lost 3 houses. We didn't lose any people. And we put 200 people up in schools in different locations. And I think that we were very successful in keeping it safe, even though it was a mess. So, and we got some other new projects coming on, but we got to work on the budget. That's about it. Do you have any questions?
Jordan?
Jordan Ehrenkranz, 3719-384. Just a couple of quick announcements, but first I'd like to wish everybody a very, very happy and healthy new year, and looking forward to working with everybody this coming year. It's always been a pleasure, and I know it's going to continue to be so. There may be a little confusion as to tomorrow night. It normally would be our city council meeting, but it's not going to be until the following Wednesday on the 15th. Due to the holidays, the staff really didn't have time to prepare everything, and I think we're going to have quite a lengthy meeting. So just don't show up tomorrow night unless you want to be there by yourself. And the other thing is, and I'm sure you'll probably announce it as well, but next Monday, the 15th, we're having a joint meeting with the POA and the city, and it's going to be an open forum here at 6 o'clock next Monday. I don't know exactly what the agenda is yet. We're putting our part of it together, and I'm sure you're working on yours as well. So we encourage everybody to come. Hopefully they'll enjoy what we have to say, and there'll be a few presentations. And that's really all I have to say. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for coming. And just to confirm, we're talking Monday, a joint meeting between the city, Elsinore Municipal Valley Water District, and the POA, and it's going to be at this location right here. Okay, thank you. Did I miss any other public officials? I think we're looking good. Do we have presentations today?
No, sir.
I don't see anybody. Okay, just one comment. There's been some Facebook comments about the RFID for guests. I think there was some indication it was going to be on the agenda tonight. It's not going to be an agenda item tonight. There's open public comments. Someone can come up and talk about it. The board cannot respond to items that are not on the agenda. They can make a few comments about thank you, or we can refer to staff. But if you come and you have comments about the guest RFID, the board can't give you any significant response. It's not on the agenda. My personal opinion is it probably won't be on the agenda for a while, extended while. Thank you. Okay, consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull any items from the consent agenda? Okay, can I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Harmony, any comments?
No.
Okay. Can I have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, board action items, 6.1, the Board of Directors, revised board meeting policy. Is there staff presenting this?
I can. This was just further discussion on our board meeting policy, and the change proposed here is to change the time back from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We changed it a couple months ago, I believe, and as a trial run, haven't seen a significant change in attendance, and are now putting it out for discussion and board consideration on if we should go back to 6 o'clock.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the revised board meeting policy.
I second.
Any comments? Any comments from the audience?
I don't
Harmony?
I have none.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
6.2, approval of the 2020 annual meeting election schedule and ballot. Harmony?
Sorry. Okay, so our annual election schedule and ballot material every year, we have our annual election in May, and we get our schedule out in advance through our Inspector of Elections, who is HOA elections this year. So the only items we have would be the election of directors and our IRS ballot measure. So we ask that the board review and approve the ballot measures and election schedule as revised. There were a few changes to the dates that everyone can find out front. If you wanted to grab a revised election schedule, this is what we're asking you to approve.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that the board of directors approve the election schedule, the IRS ballot measure to be included in the 2020 annual meeting of the members' ballot.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comments from the community?
No.
Any comments from the board?
I just want to point out that this is a routine process for us, and there are no, even though there are changes in the election that we're going to hear about and talk about in the next item, that this really is the same fundamental process that we go through.
I guess the only comment is encourage all of your neighbors and members to vote. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, 6.3, 28-day reading rule revision on membership voting, meeting and voter rules. And Corey, you're going to discuss this?
Good evening. So we have a rule revision to our membership meeting and voting rules. I'll go through the background here. So these new election rules are to comply with changes in California law affecting the way membership votes in homeowner associations are to be conducted. Requirements include new deadlines, address verification tasks and mailings, candidate qualifications, member voting qualifications, inspector of election qualifications, and record-keeping obligations. The law requires our association to adopt election rules consistent with these new requirements. The board has consulted with legal counsel to develop election rules that comply with the new requirements, which will work in a practical way for our association. These election rules will apply to elections of directors as well as any other official votes by the membership. So the recommendation is to approve the 28-day reading to revise rules GR 1.5 through GR 1.5F as attached.
Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the 28-day reading of the revised election rules.
I'll second.
Any comments from the members?
No.
Any board comments? My only comment is this is primarily driven by law changes. We have to, the law changed this year, so we had to modify some of our policies. So that's what's driving this particular reading. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
And Corey, I think you're staying for the next one?
Sure, absolutely. So this is another 28-day reading for a rule revision to GR 6.1C2 titled Gate Runner. So the current rule being used to cite for a gate runner through Community Patrol has been GR 6.9A. The Appeals Committee is recommending that we modify GR 6.1C so that the rule is more specific and applies to the actual situation. So what we find is a gate runner is typically somebody who has a pass, is asked to provide a driver's license, chooses not to, and decides to enter the community after being told to turn around. I can read GR 6.9A, which was being used, and so that says any persons who utilize the decal lane to access the community without having a valid CLPOA issued decal affixed to their windshield and refuse to turn around and utilize the visitor lane to obtain a paper pass, or anyone who enters the community through the visitor lane and are not issued a paper pass but asked to exit the community and failed to do so may be subject to a violation and applicable fines. So feedback from the Appeals Committee is that this didn't cover every circumstance that we run across, and so they felt like we needed to modify a rule that we could use for enforcement purposes.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I beat Tom. I'll make a motion that we approve the rule revision, or the 28-day reading for rule revision 6.1.C.2 Gate Runner.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion from the members, Harmony? Comments?
No.
Any comments from the board?
I guess I'd just like to say that we are working diligently and paying attention to the appeals process and trying to streamline our rules and make clarity so that it streamlines that process. And this is one of those steps.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Corey, thank you. Cheryl, I guess it's your turn? John's coming with you? Okay. John is the chairman of the ACC committee. So thank you for your time you dedicate.
If the board doesn't mind, I'm not feeling very well, so John's going to go ahead and explain what we're doing with their two rules, okay?
PC 4.19, property maintenance required. We submitted this once before, and Director Odell asked for some examples. Our purpose originally was submitting a change to the fine. We have found that, or the Planning and Compliance Department has found that $50 a month fine is not deterring people from using their yard for storage, instead of putting stuff that they have collected in the garage or the house or rent a storage locker. So we asked for the fine to be increased to $250 a month. And we have put examples into the new rule of what kind of examples we're looking at when they're talking about stored items. So basically, we'd like to get a 28-day reading on it.
This is actually for a rule approval. My apologies
yes.
for John. It's a rule approval. We already went through the 28-day reading back in November, so we're bringing it back to this month for an approval.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I move approval of the rule revision of PC 4.19, property maintenance required.
I'll second.
Member comments, Harmony?
No.
Board comments? I'd just like to read some of the examples of what they consider storage. Bags of trash, garbage items for recycling that need to be taken to the dump, vehicle parts, construction supplies when no permit has been issued. So it gives you a basic idea. And the way I understand it is you don't get a ticket day one. If your items are, say you have a bag of trash in the front yard, all of a sudden you don't get a fine for $250. You get a letter, a warning saying clean up your front, and then if you don't comply, then you get the fine. Is that correct?
That is correct. They actually get two letters. They get a first letter as a courtesy notice, which gives them 7 days to respond. And then if they fail to respond, then a hearing notice goes out. So and that hearing notice can be as much as 15 to 19 days more notice. For something such as trash cans and stored items, we only give them, 7 days to kind of reply.
So my point is you don't have to go to lose sleep tonight that you're going to wake up tomorrow with a ticket in the mail. You'll actually, there's a due process and there is an opportunity for you to clean your property. So
Yes, and planning compliance does not issue tickets. We issue violation letters. It's not a on-the-spot ticket with a fine attached to it. It's a courtesy notice that you are in violation and that we're asking for it to be corrected.
yeah. Any other board comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, John, we're back to you with the trees. Rule revision PC 8.4 trees. This is for a 28-day reading.
We actually brought this to the board last month, and Director Odell happened to notice that when this was originally rewritten, we already had a CC&R in place, but it needed some improvement and some details about how you're required to get a permit to remove a tree from your property. The Director Odell made a point of, or happened to mention to it, that we're missing the information about the requirement for 2 trees in the front yard. And that was a good point, and I am sorry that I missed that when I was sticking extra stuff in there. My goal was to make trees to be all about trees and have everything possible that was in the book, and I just missed that. So there are rules such as setbacks for the tree from the curb, and basically that's what the rule covers, so they have it up on the board now. And,
If I may,
yeah.
to help John out a little bit, what we did is we combined two rules. There's a rule that basically states that there's a minimum of trees that is required on everybody's front yard. There's not a maximum amount, there is a minimum. And I believe that Director Odell was concerned that there might be a conflict. And so what we did is we added the two rules together, which eventually when it goes to rule approval, we can eliminate the one rule, and it'd be one rule that it will accommodate all of it, which means you'll have to require a member to come in and get permission to remove a tree, and also let them know that if they remove a tree in the front, that they would have to make sure that they still had 2 trees. But they can have as many as 20 trees on their lot. They still have to ask the committee whether or not they can remove it. So that's the purpose of this rule.
Also, it had been brought up that what happens if you want to put in a pool? Obviously, the ACC is going to have, it's going to actually look at it, and we're not going to deny somebody not to put a pool in because they have a tree there. So there's will be common sense things, and the committee will look at that when people want to remove them and not replace them.
All right, do I hear a motion?
I move approval of the 28-day reading of PC 8.4 trees and point out that this is the second 28-day reading for this because of the change that was made.
Okay.
Second.
All right, Harmony, again, do we have any comments from the members?
No.
Okay, board comments.
I have 3 comments on this. Basically, this addresses members removing trees, but operations also removes trees. Are they going to have to get a permit, or are they just going to be allowed to remove trees without that? Steve. He's shooting me evil eyes. I just think that if we're passing a rule that our members have to comply with, then we as a POA should also have to comply with those rules. So that's comment number 1. I'm just telling you my comments. What about increased maintenance costs for trees like jacarandas? As they mature, they get very, very messy. Is that going to be a reason that members could remove their trees? And thirdly, I think if one of the reasons we're doing this is to protect the mature look of our community, then perhaps the 15-gallon size of replacement trees is not large enough. So those are my comments.
So I can answer number 3 for you real quickly. The 15-gallon is basically to keep things affordable, because trees can be quite expensive if you get them any larger than that. I mean, we're already talking anywhere between $100 and $400 for a 15-gallon tree. And that's for an actual tree, not for a shrub or a bush. As for the operations, whether or not they are supposed to get a permit through us currently, the POA is not conformed to the same rules. I do know that we are in the process of coming up with a way of being able to keep the POA when they are doing their cleanup of things, and also when they are doing their improvements, that they follow the same rules. But currently, right now, they do not. So that would have to actually be directed to Eric, if you want that question answered. And what was the second question? I'm sorry.
Just, you indicated at our last meeting several reasons why our homeowners would be allowed to remove a tree. And I'm wondering if increased maintenance costs would also be a reason that you would approve a tree removal.
I don't think that the committee has come up with a standard as of yet. That also could very well be put into a part of their standard. If it's a tree, let's say, for instance, a pepper tree, which actually loses a lot of leaves and becomes messy, and their little berries will stain everything, that could very well be a part of the standard. It's just I don't have a complete answer for you, but I believe that the committee is going to look at the whole. We have to look at each property on an individual basis. So with those removals of trees, we would probably say if you're going to remove one, we would want to have you replace it with another. That's how I would think that the standard would be.
Thank you.
Any more board comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
I'm voting no
Oh, I'm sorry.
until we can clarify some of these items. Thank you.
Yes, 4 in favor, 1 against, motion carried.
Okay, 6.7, re-sanctioning of the Canyon Lake clubs. Lynn, this is yours?
Okay, sorry. Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties with the overhead, so it keeps cutting out. Okay, so last month when we met, we started the first round of the club re-sanctioning. Tonight, we have in your packet, you'll see the current list that's pending for re-sanctioning. For those of you that weren't here last month, the POA sent out renewal requests to the groups. We've received several applications back. There is a set of required documents that have to be submitted. So as you can see on the action item, we have to have the application, the damages agreement, gate access agreement, a roster, bylaws, meeting minutes, and a letter of community service. One thing that we've had to go back and reach out to the clubs recently over this last month is that inclusive of your community service, if you have monetary donations, we also need a treasurer's report or a financial statement. You've probably been getting calls from staff this week requesting that information because the Sanction Club policy does include it. However, it wasn't listed on the initial letter that we sent out. So just a point of clarification. So it's recommended that the Board of Directors review the attached list of clubs requesting re-sanctioning for this year and make a determination if they would be approved or rejected going forward for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that the Board of Directors approve the request for re-sanctioning of the attached club list. That approval is contingent upon the confirmation of the club's membership roster and the community service verification. The sanctioned club renewal is for a period of 3 calendar years, effective 2020, 21, and 22.
Second.
Do we have any member comments?
No.
Board comments?
Can I add one last statement?
Okay.
Okay, so for everybody that hasn't submitted, I think we're up to, I'll say under 30 clubs that have applied. This Friday is the last day to get your applications in for next board meetings, review and approval. We're trying to get through this process. Everybody's calendar requests have been placed on hold. So if you have not submitted it, contact myself or activities, but Friday is the deadline. We've been working on this for several months and we're trying to get it finalized. So if you have questions or need assistance, please call us. Thank you.
Well, just to clarify, the clubs that we have sanctioned, their reservations are not on hold. The only ones on hold are the ones that we have not sanctioned.
We've still been going through and reviewing the rosters and trying to get all of these items finalized. We've only been approving as needed. Everybody's technically on hold right now.
Okay.
But as they're coming up, we know some events are happening in January, so we know we have to address those. But the ones that are coming up in the next few months, that's why we're trying to reach out to people and get your stuff so we can confirm your dates. So they were tentatively booked. I don't want everybody to panic, but we are trying to finalize this. It's a little bit of incentive to get the clubs to give us what we need. So they tentatively booked it. We get this information. We can proceed with confirming your dates, and you all can go about your club re-sanctioning. Thank you.
Travis, this is about the club? Yes. Okay.
Travis Montgomery, 3863010. I was going through my packet. I was looking for the list of those clubs. I serve on 2 different boards. I don't know whether my clubs are on the list or not. I don't recall that being discussed at any of our board meetings. I think it would be helpful to those who are at home and watching too if the list was up there so that if there's a deadline coming up of 3 days, we'd know right now tonight. I have a board meeting tomorrow of a club. So if we could see that list, I think that would be...
Of the groups that have submitted, we haven't provided it. We are happy to contact the groups that have not submitted their lists, their applications, and notify them. The board It's up to the board, but we've just been reaching out to the groups that we need information from individually. So originally we sent out a mass email, but we didn't feel it was necessary to email everybody collectively and point out who was missing information. So,
Gee, there's lots of information provided in the board packets on all kinds of things, on all kinds of agenda items. I'm just hearing there's some secret thing about who those clubs are, and we'll contact you, but we're not going to let you know in advance. Thank you.
I think also just to make sure everybody's aware, the requests for these informations from clubs started back, I think, in September, and we gave 30 days, and then 30 more days, and 30 more days, and the club presidents have all been contacted. Everybody has been given their adequate notice and time to respond, and we just don't see as many people coming back with the completed packets as. So, okay, then you've probably done everything that you can to communicate with these people so that they've had lots of opportunities. And this is, I think, just one more opportunity to try and get things in. Hopefully, if the people want to, they will. We expect that there are some that may just not choose to.
sure, I'm happy to read the names of the list of the clubs that have submitted an application. There are a couple that are not on this list because we got them in the last few days. So again, please do not panic. If you have questions, feel free to contact myself or Activities. They've been helping work on this project. In no particular order, the clubs that have submitted their applications: the Ski Club, the Roadrunners, Family Golf Club, Canyon Lake Little League, Brownie Troop, Triathlon and Fitness, SoCal Skiers, Pickleball, Co-Ed Softball, Lioness, Lions, Homeowners, Tennis, Chair Volleyball, Corliers, Women's Club, Women's Golf Club, Car Club, Fine Arts Guild, Cub Scouts, Troop 346, Men's Golf Community Theater, Art Association, Niners Golf Club, Clams, Family Matters Club, Junior Women's Club, Wakeboard Club. I can't remember the exact two names, but two other clubs that are submitted today. But again, we still needed information from a lot of these groups, so that's really why we weren't naming names. Thank you.
Have something to say? Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the deadline will pass this Friday. At our next board meeting in February, we'll have an opportunity to approve a final list of clubs that are sanctioned. After that, the other clubs, we're working on a policy now to treat them as what we're going to call activity clubs. You'll see at the February meeting a change in the policy of what that means, but that will be coming forward for a 28-day reading and then for approval in March. So it's a next step that we're taking to make sure that we honor the requirement we have for sanctioning clubs, but also recognizing that all clubs are not going to choose to meet those requirements, and to set a set of requirements for them so they understand what their status is in the community as far as using our amenities.
Do we have a list of clubs that have submitted everything that's acceptable?
The list I read off is the clubs that have submitted their packets.
Are they complete? I guess the question is.
A lot of them are still under review with the rosters and the community service. Like I mentioned earlier, they gave us their community service letters, but we went back to a lot of them and requesting some additional information. So the majority of the clubs we're still needing information from, but staff's been contacting you individually rather than in a group email.
And the missing documents are their community service and their rosters.
We needed clarification on community service, the rosters, and the treasurer's report. And to caveat to Dale's comment about the membership rosters, we've realized that some of the clubs do not meet the membership requirements of 60-40%, so that's another thing that we've been working on, is reaching out to the clubs to confirm your rosters. So it's just very time consuming to go through all of this information. It's not a standard packet. Everybody has their own version, and so it's just taking staff a little bit of time to go through everything. Any other questions? Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, Appeals Committee member appointment. Staff, this would probably be,
I could do it. Mary's not here. Okay, the association received an application from member Bruce Yarborough. He's been serving currently on the committee since October 2019. The following members are requesting appointment to the Appeals Committee: Brian Wood, Bruce Yarborough, Jack Wamsley. It is recommended that the Board of Directors approve or reject Bruce Yarborough as the seated position contingent upon execution of non-disclosure agreement effective immediately. Thank you.
do I have a motion? Yes, motion.
I make a motion that the Board of Directors approve Bruce Yarborough as a seated position contingent upon execution of a non-disclosure agreement effective immediately.
I'll second.
Would it be possible for Lynn to give us a few words of how Bruce Yarborough came to be the recommendation of the other three? Please.
I'm sorry, I wasn't at the Appeals Committee to know the exact recommendation.
I can answer
Oh,
that.
thank you.
Bruce is currently the alternate, so all they're doing is moving Bruce from the alternate to the permanent.
My question is, do we need an alternate then? An alternate or?
There will be an alternate vacancy if approved.
So
And the Appeals Committee is aware of that and will be bringing a recommendation forward to the board.
So we have two candidates for positions. They basically would be considered as the alternates then?
That would be That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
I am speaking for Mary.
I'll just add a quick note as well for Mary. Our alternate positions, according to our committee policy, automatically get appointed when there's a vacancy for a seated position. If they've been there for 3 meetings or 90 days, Bruce is shy by a meeting or, I think, 30 days. So they're putting a formal recommendation in, which would leave an opening for the alternate.
Okay. So we'll look at the alternate. The committee will look at the alternate position, give us a recommendation probably in the next meeting or so. That's most likely. Okay. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, we're into member comments on non-personnel issues. As a reminder, if it is not on the agenda, the board can provide only limited comments, such as thank you, or we can refer your comments to staff. But other than that, don't think we're trying to be rude or that we don't care, or it's just the way the rules are. If it's not on the agenda, our ability to comment is pretty limited.
Yes. Our first is Nancy Horton.
First of all, I want to thank the entire staff for all of the wonderful activities that took place in December and all the work that was done on behalf of members, parties, events. It was a dizzying amount of things going on, and I appreciate the work that took place. My question is for our legal department. It concerns FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Recently came to my attention that there are specific rules from FEMA for private corporations, gated communities, and for residences within gated communities that are different from public entities such as a city. In the event of a real emergency, there could be some serious expenses to our private corporation, such as roads washed out, causeways, significant debris washed up in an area that would require a considerable amount of money to take care of it. And I would like some research being done by our legal department to find out whether the Property Owners Association could be reimbursed for that. The second part of my question is, what happens with private residences? If you live in a city, you can apply to FEMA. You see it on television all the time with fires. The Paradise Fire, FEMA is there. They have a desk, and people can go up to FEMA and ask for relief from. I remember during Katrina, FEMA was handing out $1,000 vouchers for people to get clothing to get a car to use, and a place to stay. But it's different in a gated community, in private residences in a gated community. So I would like our legal department to, when it's convenient, when they have done the research, to report back to all of us so that we can know where we stand in the event of a serious emergency. So I thank you. It's very dangerous when you become a new member of the Canyon Lake Emergency Preparedness Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Welcome to come. I'd like to invite you personally to come to the meeting with the city and the EVMWD, and the emergency committee is kind of networked with all of them, so that might be a good place for you to come and make some comments. Okay, Harmony, any?
Yes, next is Jack Walmsley.
Basically, 38, 30, 31, lot 40, forgot that they don't do that in the city. Just wanted to congratulate you for the agreement that you've come close to with reference to the water company. I think we've played around with that thing long enough, and I'm glad to see that they're coming to a head finally. The only problem that I see is that we should have the open forum prior to signing anything that's solid on it. A lot of people in the community have comments, I'm sure, on the issues, but nobody has seen the issues. And so if you have an open forum, I would request that you supply everybody in the community, if they want them, a copy of what you're proposing with reference to the agreement, at least a week ahead of the meeting, so that they have time to read that. And this is not an easy thing to read. This is something that we have to dig into, and it's just not buying a piece of equipment. We're talking about a condition that will probably stand for many, many years. So I think it's very important that you present this to the people so that they can study it prior to that meeting that I understand you're going to have. I know the water company's happy about it. Happened to be in a meeting with one of them, and he's happy we're coming to a head on the thing. It's good that the board will make the decision. We do not need the lawyers making the decision on this. It's cost us enough with reference to all the work and so on that's been going on there in the board. You certainly have the capability. You have to put the knowledge together, and then when you get through, then you can hand it to the lawyers and they can fine tune it. But they should not be in the negotiations as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, you got a good manager, you got a good board. Hopefully we come up with a good program, but at least let everybody know what you're doing. That's it.
Thank you, Jack. Harmony, any further comments?
Yes, our next is member Robert Duncan.
Robert, could you press the microphone button? You'll see it go red when you press it. That's okay. All right, see the red?
Yeah, is that a good thing? Yes, my name is Bob Duncan, and back in the day, I used to be on the equestrian committee, which has been put into the recreation committee, and the issue that we have really should probably go to the committee first and then come to the board. At least that's the way we used to do it in the equestrian committee. And the issue, just to give you a heads up, is a couple of owners or people in general with their horses boarded in the barn are subjecting their horses to abuse. And I'm not quite sure how we're going to deal with that. And there'll probably be a lot of dialogue on how to deal with that. And I think it'd be best to put it back into the Recreation Committee. Let us thoroughly discuss it and see what we can come up with as a solution, and then make a recommendation to the board.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I think you're right. I think we can refer this off to the Recreation Committee. We'll try to do that. I don't know, Steve, if you can maybe ask Alex to see if we can go on the agenda.
Well, we're working on that right now. I talked to one of the committee members, and I'm going to try to bring it up in Tuesday.
Okay. So hopefully it'll be on that agenda.
Okay, thank you.
And those meetings are open to the public, or to all the members, so just let everybody know.
Absolutely. And in fact, the more the merrier on something like this. This is going to be pretty controversial.
Okay.
Our last is Catherine Duffy.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Duffy. It's tract 3973021. I have a very small need for clarification on something, and I'm probably one of maybe a few in the community. I've been here for 6 years. I really enjoy my golf cart, but I do not register it with the DMV. It is a personal property item. It is covered under my personal property insurance and my umbrella. And this RFID thing has just got me confused, because when I tried to get an RFID for my golf cart, they said, no, it has to be registered with the state of California. And that's not the situation that I have. So I'm wondering, how does this apply to me? And are there others in the community that are going to be affected by this? I can't use my golf cart anymore to go across to town center to, okay, we're getting an authority here.
I believe this is the authority. This is a point of fact here, so we'll give him a minute to clarify.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, it sounds like you have misinformation there. You do not have to register your golf cart with the DMV.
Okay.
You can register the golf cart just as a golf cart here with the association.
That is what it is.
We do require insurance.
Yes.
And I can talk to you afterwards about what those requirements are if you'd like.
I'm clear on that.
Oh, okay.
I've got the decal. But what confused me is the decals are not going to be issued anymore when these expire. And so does the RFID going to be put on my golf cart?
Yes, you just need to bring the golf cart down to the member services office and we can do that for you.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you for giving me 30 seconds.
And you can see Corey here, and behind Valerie, can you raise your hand? In the back is Valerie, so if you have a struggle at the front desk when you go in, ask for Corey or Valerie, and they'll...
I'm clear on everything else. That was confusing to me. And for me personally, I love this place. I really do. I wanted to live here for years and years, and then I finally got retired, and I finally was able to. And the house that I was able to buy, I feel so fortunate in getting, because I have a full view of the lake, and it's just extraordinary to have a cup of coffee in the morning and a glass of wine at night. And I enjoy all the activities. I don't participate in a lot of them. I'm not a sports person. I'm not really a club-type person. But I really love living here. And thank you so much for making it a community of such respect, because I think that's what we've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comments?
No, sir.
Okay, public comments are complete. Report of executive session. Lynn?
Good evening. Again, I apologize for this major distraction back here. Okay, so today's executive session was called to order at 1:11 p.m. Items discussed on today's agenda included 2 member-related discussion items. There was an update provided from legal counsel. The board held discussion on 2 third-party contract discussion items, and there was 7 personnel matters discussed. Today's meeting concluded at 5:25 p.m. Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to association reports. Eric?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Happy New Year. As usual, I'd like to refer all of you to the staff and association reports, which begin on page 74, PDF page 74, I think. You'll find very detailed reports in there from the Activities Department, Communications Department, Community Patrol, Marine Patrol, Planning and Compliance, Operations. I'll get into the operations report and some projects in a minute. I do want to say that we put out a lot of information on the mandatory RFID, which is coming. We've talked about it a little bit tonight. There's a lot of chatter on social media, and there was a couple letters to the editor about RFID for family members and guests. And I want to make very clear that the mandatory RFID program that starts in January for Northgate, February for Eastgate, and March for Maingate is only for residents, and no part of that program is issuing, it currently has plans to issue RFID to guests or family members. If you're not a registered resident of family members that don't live here, I should say. So these 2 topics are totally unrelated. The letters to the editor and the social media talk about giving guests and non-resident family members RFID access. That has absolutely nothing to do with our mandatory RFID program, and there's a lot of confusion about that, and I just want to set the record straight. 2 separate topics. There's been talk about doing that, and at this point it's just talk. And so really, if you don't have a RFID tag for your vehicle, come get it. It is a mandatory program for registered residents only. All right, so for operations and projects, this month and last month, our large paving project is going well. Last month, we completed Holiday Harbor and Sierra Park were completed. Work was done at Galt Field, Diamond Point, Moonstone. Those are all complete except for slurry seal and striping. We'll be working on the remainder of the parking lots and Canyon Lake Drive North this winter and spring. We are looking to start the first of 4 major phases of the Lodge parking lot renovation towards the end of February. We've also nearly completed the entry monument at the East Gate and the monument and water feature at the Country Club. Both of those need lettering and lighting. I think the monument at the Country Club needs to be plastered. Working on final touches for both of those. We will also start final landscaping at the entry and the parking lot planters at the Country Club. We should be starting on that this month, I would think. Next, the North Ski area improvements are nearly complete. We're working now on shade structures over the picnic areas. We've recently installed 3 new large exit lane LED signage to promote community events. You've probably seen those on your way out of the community. It's a nice addition. That's been a long time coming. We also have received 4 stationary radar signs. I understand they're here, and those should also be installed sometime this month. Thank you. The pool is currently closed for the winter. we will be starting a major renovation project. This is a total renovation project on the pool itself. Pool is 20 years old. It's time for it to be replastered, new tile, new coping. We're actually removing and replacing the entire pool deck. The original pool deck itself had issues, and that was then covered up with a coating that had even worse issues. And so the pool decking is actually pretty much a disaster. We've kept it looking okay with paint and various other homemade remedies for the last few years, but we're replacing the entire concrete pool decking and new plastering. So that's a pretty major renovation of the pool. That was approved last month, and we should be starting that this month. The Eastport Dog Park improvements are delayed about a month, basically due to weather and the contractor's scheduling. That should get back on track next month. The pump track, we finally got out of a long, multi-month stalled period. We were waiting for EVMWD to give us some approvals. That's now passed. I'm hoping that we get that moving and get a grading permit and decide on final phasing and move ahead with that project. So you should see some progress on that in the coming months. Golf course lake renovation should be starting in February. That kind of depends on weather and the contractor's availability, and we're in pretty much constant contact with them. And I don't know that we have a firm start date yet, Steve, but we're working on that. Excuse me. We are also starting our budget season. Staff has completed our budget preparation, and we've now kind of ready to turn it over to the Finance Committee. It'll spend quite a bit of time going through the Finance Committee meeting with staff, and then for final board approval. So we've been pretty busy, made it through the holidays, and ready to start 2020, and we have a lot of things on tap this year and looking forward to it. So thank you.
Community Patrol, Bill?
Good evening, all. Great. With the new year upon us, I felt it was appropriate to discuss some of the upcoming changes and non-changes. So, regarding the changes, the biggest one, of course, which was just discussed, is the upcoming gate entry procedure change with the addition of automation and the elimination of decals for entry purposes. This change will take place in 3 phases. North Gate will be first, beginning on January 13th, which is just next week. You can also grab a information flyer from the North Gate if you haven't read up on it yet. They have plenty of them there. The second phase will be the East Gate, which begins on February 17th, and then the main gate will be the last phase, which will begin on March 16th. After this date, decals will no longer be valid for entry. And the reason I mention this is I understand that this can be confusing time for all. That'd be residents, guests, and guards alike. But my staff is committed to doing our part to help make this transition as smooth as possible. Other changes in effect now there are construction type changes. Parking lot repaving and signage for the most part, and I encourage all to drive carefully and also have some patience with parking and traffic issues that are caused by these projects. They're only temporary, and everyone is, I'm sure, doing their best to get it done as quickly and safely as possible. Lastly, there have been a few community patrol staff changes as well. So if you happen to see a new face at the gate or a new face that's driving around in a patrol vehicle, feel free to introduce yourself and say hi. I have encouraged my staff to do the same, and just as a hint, they all wear name tags now, so they'll be a little easier to identify. Now for some of the non-changes, just the big ones, of course. Speed limits, fishing rules, boating rules, and parking rules. Some may think so, but there have been no changes to these existing rules in the new year. My staff constantly trains to be vigilant to spot these infractions and address them on site, but of course, we can't be everywhere at all times or see everything. Therefore, our policy regarding service calls has not changed. That policy is Community Patrol will respond to all service calls received. Please feel free to continue to call Community Patrol Dispatch Line to report suspected infractions, and feel free to call me directly at extension 411 if you feel that there's an ongoing issue that has not been addressed. So thank you all, and I wish everyone a Happy New Year.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Teresa, Corporate Counsel, can you expand a little bit on the EVMWD thing? I don't know what you can say, but if you could.
Yes. Basically, what I can report to you is that the EVMWD and the association have entered into a settlement agreement that's been fully executed. And I know there was a report in the Friday Flyer in that regard. The settlement still has to be approved by the court, and there's a hearing coming up in the end of January where the approval will be heard by the court, and then a notice will be approved that will be sent out to all of the members that are on the lakefront as to whether they want to opt in or opt out of the settlement. However, prior to that notice being sent out, the board anticipates holding a workshop where we can better educate the members of the association as to exactly what these legal documents mean. We haven't picked an exact date for that, and we will not know that until the hearing, which is at the end of January.
Okay, and then we have staff reports as written. But we're back on to board comments. The board have any comments?
RFID said the change is coming January 15th, I think it is, for the specific date on the North Gate. That's probably where you're going to see the biggest change. Our goal here is to try and help cost savings on our gate staff, so we're planning to eliminate the attendant that usually is on the RFID or the outer lane. Currently, we've been operating it as both an RFID and a manned entry for a resident, and that will just change to fully automated, so only RFID on the right side at the north gate and everything else through the left side. The savings at the other gates won't be as immediate. We'll still keep manned people at the east and north gates, main gates when we make the switches there, trying to minimize some of the hours if we can, and that'll be probably a learning curve as we start going through that process, but estimated right now is, I think, approaching $100,000 savings each year by getting rid of some of this labor that we have at manned gates. Happy New Year. Thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate you all being here, and we'll see you hopefully next month, or actually next week at the city meeting.
Okay. I just wanted to point out a secondary benefit we're getting from the mandatory RFID requirements, and that has to do with our security. The gates are going to be coming down after each car now, so no one's going to be able to drive through and perhaps have someone miss whether they belong in or not. The gates will come down, it'll take an RFID identification that's approved to open that gate for the next car to go through. I believe that this is going to help us improve the control we have about who enters our community, and certainly going to give us a complete record of every car that comes through the community. So I see that as a positive benefit that I don't want to have overlooked. And I'll say Happy New Year, looking forward to the coming year and all the things that we have before us. Thank you.
Oh, I figured out what I wanted to say. No, I'm just kidding. I do want to thank staff. We are currently working through the budget process right now, so it has actually been kind of fun to work with staff and the Finance Committee on that. So I am looking forward to continuing that process and bringing something back for our public workshops, by the way, which are February 6th and February 13th at 6 p.m. here in this room. And that is where the budget is presented by staff, by Susan, our controller, and then for the board to comment on, and for the public to comment on. So I really do encourage as many people as possible to come to our 2 budget workshops. Thank you.
Well, I'll give one last plug for RFID. If you don't know anything about it, go to our website. It's a great presentation there. And with that, I would wish everybody a Happy New Year, and I think we have more great things to come this year for our community. Thank you.
We have done some club sanctioning tonight. We've been struggling over the years to get the clubs to provide their documents. We know it's kind of painful, and it isn't as going as smooth as we would like, but we really need the clubs to respond and get their information in. This is really to protect the whole community and make sure that our resources are being used effectively. We'd hate to see a club with 2 members come and use this room and say it's a club event, so we should get this for our 2 people. So we use this club sanctioning to kind of balance out the resources and to make sure that if a group wants to use an amenity that they have a proper need and that it's properly sized for them. So we really appreciate all the clubs to come on in and provide the documents. It sounds like most of them are missing maybe 1 or 2, and if you communicate with the staff, I'm sure that we can get everything back online. So please try to work with the staff to get that done. The intention is really to protect the membership and to provide the best resources we can to the clubs. Anyway, Happy New Year, and thank you guys all for coming tonight. We are having the budget meetings. They're usually attended by, I could name a few names in here that show up, but for the most part, they're pretty thinly attended. We would sure like to see the members come in and see where their money's going and while the decisions are being made, and the workshops will be announced. And so the workshops are open to the public. The board will be at them, and they'll be asking some questions, so we encourage you to come. Thank you all for coming. We're going to recess now and take a little break. We have some ACC appeals, architectural appeals. We'll pick that up in about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, we're about going.
All right, you're out of here.
Bye, Joe.
All right, let's come back to session.
Bang the gavel.
Bang.
Okay, Tom will be back. Yeah, he's not far. We have architectural appeals. We're going to come back into session. We have, is Sharon Renzi here? John?
You guys aren't Sharon Renzi, right? You're the next one?
If we could, we'd still like to do that. Actually, have the hearing for it, if we could do that, the appeal.
Yes,
She's not present.
you
If
can.
that's okay with you.
Did she request us to move ahead without her, or did she's just not here, so we're going to move without her?
I don't know why she's not here. I'm sorry.
Sometimes they come and they just want that Cheryl present, but we don't have any presenters.
So,
Okay, Teresa, can we postpone this or table it till next month?
Yes, you can postpone it.
okay. Can we do the appeal or not?
You could, I mean, the way your rules are written, unless she gave a valid reason as to why she's not here and has requested a continuance, which I understand she has not, you could still go ahead and rule on it, or you could also just postpone it for 30 days and make the ruling, giving her a second opportunity to appear.
Okay.
It's up to the board.
Correct.
Well, the way it stands now, it's on the agenda. Why don't you give us John, give us the discussion of the item?
Okay, I'd first like to state that Cheryl is not feeling good, so she went home. I know I cannot do as good job as Cheryl could do for her staff comments, but what I'll do is I'll basically break it down. I'll do the staff, then I'll do and she left me her notes, and then I'll do what I was going to say if there was really that much to it. What happened is our inspectors were out and about, and they happened to come up on this member's property, and they had noticed that a 4-foot fence white vinyl fence had been installed in the courtyard. So they talked to the member and told her that she needed a permit. She came down to Plan and Compliance, filled out an application, and then the committee reviewed it. The committee went out to the site, and we discovered that the fence was installed down along the left side of the house, from the courtyard area down to the lake. It's 4 foot high, it's white vinyl, and it's open fencing. So we denied it because it's a CCNR violation, PC 4.3C. She appealed to the committee and addressed only 4.A and 4.B, 4.3A and 4.3B, and those two CCNRs have nothing to do with the height of the fence. So we're at this point now where it's, excuse me, let me go back one here. So anyway, the committee measured the fence, and it does not go all the way to the lake. The CCNR says that you cannot have a fence exceed 3 foot height in 3 feet in height if in the rear setback on a lakefront home. So we measured the property from the rear of the house, did a look at her original house plans. The house was built 30 feet back from the lake shore. So we counted up the fence panels and found that there's 3 sections of fence that are over height. 2 of them are full panels, 8 feet wide, I believe, 7 or 8 feet wide, and 1 half panel. And so we asked her that they needed to be cut down, and that's where we are right now, where she appealed to the board, or she is appealing now for this fence. Can you bring up the first picture?
I'll try.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So it's kind of hard to see here, obviously. That's it.
Where'd it go?
I think we're going to have to use.
Okay. So basically, here's where it is, right here in this area. That is the only violation is right there.
I can see a piece of plant coming through the fence about halfway up.
Okay.
And that looks like it's the beginning of where you're saying it needs to go down to 3 feet.
No, it's further down. It's like I said, it's right in here. It's not all the way up.
There's like, it looks like 1, 2, 3 different pieces of plant that are coming out. It's okay.
Okay.
So I'm thinking it's the middle one. Like I said, there's 2 full panels and then this little small panel on the bottom. Those 3 need to be cut down to 3 feet.
Correct. So that you understand, this is CCNR, so the committee cannot approve this. The staff decided that they go along with it because it is a CCNR violation, that they would go with what the committee said. However, Cheryl and I sat down and talked about it one day after she filed her appeal to this, and although we state in here that we recommend that the board uphold our decision, we felt that it started out as kind of a bad deal. The lady the owner just bought the house in July of this year, of 2019, excuse me. So she was a new member, didn't understand the permit process, that everything you have on the exterior of a house has to be permitted, any work you do. And so the fence was put in, obviously without a permit, but she has a permit now. Cheryl and I are recommending now that you do a recorded variance for the life of the fence itself. It seems the most sensible thing. The problem is, these vinyl fences are glued together. This is going to be an expensive thing for just a couple panels. So That's what we're requesting at this time, is that you do approve it with the recorded variance. So that's why I kind of wanted to do it. It seems like it's holding it over for another month is not beneficial for the
Okay, so
board.
I'm a bit confused, because I see here on the header for this one, it says staff recommendation, or staff recommends that the board uphold the ACC decision
Correct.
for the member to cut down the last 3 panels. But I think I hear you saying
Yes.
to leave them.
Yeah, you have to understand the way these things are done. We have a time limit for when the staff has to do, when Cheryl does these appeals sheets to provide to you. And then I also do a little section, you probably never noticed, that the ACC has an in conclusion at the end, where we basically state our opinion. It starts out because it's a CCNR violation. And as you know, the committee does not approve CCNR violations. So it's just common sense, I think. I mean, in my opinion, and this is an opinion between Cheryl and myself, that it's actually would call for the replacement of all 3 panels. And the member is new to the community and didn't know the rules. So this is written a couple weeks ago. This is actually written a couple weeks ago.
So, John, you also included in our packet information that the fence was originally built in 1992 at this height, at 4 feet, and that her replacement was just replace what was there.
Yeah, we don't know what was there before. She says it was the same height, but we don't know.
Okay.
There's a permit application for a fence back, I think it's 1982, or by a previous owner, and that was approved at the time. But I assume that because it's open fencing on the right side, the member has open chain link fencing. So we assume that probably was in there at that time. The same thing, both sides of the property.
Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a motion to move ahead with this, or?
I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation that John had presented here and approve the variance on that.
I'll second that.
We don't have a member to comment, so any other board
Could we
comment?
just clarify that what we're asking is that she does a recorded variance, where she has to go out to the neighbors and get the...
No. It'll
Okay,
be a
what are we
recorded
asking?
variance. You have the authority to do a recorded variance for the life of the fence.
Can I interject for a minute? What I am seeing as the staff's recommendation is that the Board of Directors uphold the ACC's decision for the member to cut down the last 3 panels on the left side from the lake view.
That's correct.
Okay.
And what I was explaining was that Cheryl and I had a discussion about a week ago, about a week ago, and we decided that that's what we'd like ourselves, is to see a recorded variance for the life of the fence.
And just for clarification, is the justification for the variance the topography of the property, the slope of the property?
It could be, yes, but yes.
I'd like to point out that on page PDF 111, in her application, she says that the fence is 4 feet high. This fence exactly replaced the prior one, which was never found to be a problem. And so that, she had that fence replaced. It was always there. We didn't catch it in the escrow because it's a brand-new purchase, and we're supposed to...
No, she installed it.
No, the 4-foot fence... The 4-foot fence that she replaced...
Correct.
...was in violation.
Yeah. We could not find a record of a permit.
Well, I'm just saying, in my mind, because she wrote this down, that she said she replaced the prior fence to match.
Correct.
And whether there's
In height.
justification, I'm just saying that I'm willing to take that at face value. And we didn't find that in our inspection when the property was changed hands.
Correct.
So to me, that I don't know if it's a good reason for a variance, but I think that does make the situation more complicated. And I actually like the change in opinion that you have.
Yeah.
I just struggle with the CCR violation. This is a new fence. It seems like it'd be relatively simple for her to put the 3-foot sections in.
Correct.
It just makes me...
You know, as a board, you could also hold it over for another month and let her appeal it, be here for the appeal. So you have an option that way, and then you give you a chance to think about it. I know the committee likes to see the board uphold the CCNRs, but
I just...
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Could you remind me of the situation that we have with the 5- and 6-foot fences, where we routinely approve on consent agenda 6-foot fences that violate the CCNRs? What's the justification for us doing that?
People, our members have different, they put in different reasons why they want a 6-foot fence, and basically it's kind of, there's no guidelines that I know of that actually set the standards for when we would allow it and when we wouldn't.
And that's different than a 3-foot fence from a 4-foot
Correct.
fence? What's that?
In that because of the location, I would say. It's because of the lakefront, and also it applies also in the golf course. The idea is, that we believe, was that originally the Corona Land Company wanted open fencing. That's why they kept no fences in the rear yard on lakefront and golf course, and low 5-foot fences on the front. And you cannot come into the front yard, and you cannot transverse a property. They wanted an open look to the community.
I think some of the 6-foot fences, people were getting pools, and they wanted the safety of the extra foot, and all of a sudden we were approving so many of these pool 6-foot things that it became kind of...
Well, the problem I see is that concerning 6-foot fences, it's hard to get a 5-foot fence anymore. Everything's in 6 feet. Back in the early 70s, 5 foot was a standard. That's what you went and bought boards for if you're putting in a wooden fence. And now 6 foot became the standard in purchase. 5-foot fence is more expensive than the 6 foot.
Teresa, I think just to answer Chris's question, we seem to have jumped over the idea that it has to be 5 foot based on a CCNR writing of that particular rule. So how did we find that comfort level with a 6-foot fence? In comparison here, how do we get there with a 3- and 4-foot fence?
As John had pointed out, it basically became an outdated provision in that the manufacturer's specifications and how homeowners were purchasing the fences when these CCNRs were written, it was the 5-foot standard. And now, as John indicated, the standard height is the 6 foot. And that's how that policy came into play. This, though, is a different fence in that it is on the waterfront, right? And two important factors, though, is that I believe a topographic argument could be made with respect to the slope of the property. And as Mr. Poland pointed out, this fence was basically originally a 4-foot fence and was replaced with a fence of the same height. Granted, the material is different because I believe it went from it was originally a wrought iron and they changed it to a vinyl. Is that correct?
It was originally chain link.
Chain link, and they changed it to vinyl, but it was always a 4-foot fence.
If I recall correctly, when we looked at the file, we could only find a permit for the fence on the right side of the property, none on the left side. And so we don't know why. We don't know if the member probably put that fence in on the left side without a previous owner, put it in without a permit. So it may have been 3 feet, it may have been 4 feet, we just don't know because there's nothing in the file for it.
But the current owner would not have known one way or the other
Correct.
because the previous fence was a 4-foot fence. So it's not
That's what
due
she
to
states.
any potential, wrongdoing on the part of the homeowner with respect to the height.
Correct, and that's what she states, is that it was originally a 4-foot.
I'd like to suggest, and I'm not quite sure how to do this, but I'd like to suggest we table this to the next month and ask the owner to come and speak
Basically,
before we turn this
subsidiary.
down. I'd like to make a subsidiary motion.
Okay.
That we table this appeal for a month and ask the homeowner to appear and tell us her story.
I will second that. I will feel much more comfortable if the owner is here for this discussion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, we're on to the next appeal. John?
Yes. The member, I assume they're here, they're appealing the AC denial for a new home. The reason why is because a portion of the new home is below 1397.5. The member was there when the committee reviewed the new house plans, and unfortunately, when we found out that they wanted to build a house, the lowest floor at 1388, we told them that they could not do that. And then I read the rule out of the book, and the rule out of the book, and let me get my thing out here.
That rules of CC&R, correct?
Yeah, so I read the CC&R, and it said that you cannot build below 1397.5, and then there's a little comma. That is a CC&R, and there's a little comma after that, which states that it just says the elevation of the floodplain. Unfortunately, that was a mistake I made when I was reading that to him. The problem is that that was put in when they redid the rule, when the Rules Committee rewrote the rules back in 2013. They added that in. It's just a coincidence that 1397.5 happens to also be the floodplain as shown on the track maps. But the CC&R specifically states, and I wanted to kind of read it to you, all the CC&Rs for the lakefront lots all have that same statement in there. This is for their track specifically, 3868, and it says, this is the first item on page 6, first item is 7A. First floor elevations of 1397.5 feet MSL on all lakefront lots, which means that all of them, you cannot build below that. We don't know why Corona Land Company came up with that, but that is what we've been using. I've been on the committee for quite a while, as you know, and the previous chairperson had, kind of instructed me along with everyone else. I mean, it's always been known, you don't build below 1397.5. I have gone through enough house plans during my tenure so far that I have never seen a house that was approved at 1397.5 in elevation below that. So if you look at Exhibit A, if you can pull it, I guess you'll have to look at your page, which is Yeah, I don't have the same identification as you, but you can see on the floor plan, it has 1388 is what they want to build the house at, which is below 1397 by 0.5 by, I believe, 6.5 feet. So the appeal is only for building below 1397.5. There's other things that are wrong with the plan, but we haven't progressed beyond that just because of this CC&R. So the staff has recommended the Board of Directors uphold the ACC committee decision denying the members' request to build a habitable structure below 1397.5 first floor elevation per the CC&R for track 3868. Staff further requests that the board send the member back to the ACC committee to come to resolve that will not be in violation of the CC&Rs.
They can use that space for other things than habitable, but then a habitable location. So they could put a pool table down there and have a little party area or something. But I see a lot of that in the lake where it's not really
correct
for sleeping or bathrooms, but it's just simply a place to throw a TV and the pool table and some things like that.
Well, not necessarily. It's not supposed to be habitable at all. It's supposed to, anything below 1397.5 is for storage only. And there are decks below that. But like I stated, the committee has never approved anything below 1397.5 for as habitable. And it's never become a problem before. No one's ever questioned that. So this is something new for the committee.
So, John, I believe that I understand that we have a number of places where people have taken underdeck areas and closed them and created habitable space at this elevation.
Correct.
And all of those are in violation of the CC&Rs.
Correct.
And I believe that you told me that something had been done about that. What was it? What happened about that?
They, back, and I can't remember the year it was, but somewhere in the 2000s, early 2000s, they did a study of all lakefront homes, and they determined that there was probably about 20 or 30 of them that had been built. The storage areas had been turned into habitable areas. Cheryl knows more about that, but I believe they sent a registered letter to all those individuals and told them they need to get a hold harmless type of hold harmless variance. And I understand that very few people did, and it was not enforced.
So it would help me, Teresa, if you would tell us again what it would take for us to have justification for this appeal.
Okay, because your CC&R specifically state under Section 7, as John indicated, that first floor elevations of 1397.5 feet on all lakefront lots is required. The only way you can technically get around that is if you're able to find justification to grant a variance from this provision in the CC&Rs. And what that means is there has to be some unnecessary hardship particular to the property that's not in general to the community or the neighborhood. So that means that all other lakefront properties, this house somehow has to be distinguished from other lakefront properties, whether it be the location, the size of the lot, the shape of the lot, the topography of the lot. And there has to be some kind of a hardship that results, but not from personal circumstances, a hardship related to the property itself so that you could grant the variance. The fact that the member wants to build something or it's less costly to build it a particular way, those are not substantial justifications for a variance. It's not something unique to the property. It can't be a self-created hardship. So I guess, I don't know, I know the members are here today, if they're able to provide us with some additional information that provides justification as to why the board should grant a variance in this situation, that's something we can consider. But your CC&Rs specifically state under the section variances, and I'll read that section to you, as to what your CC&Rs require for a variance. And excuse me while I find that here.
It's okay. I think you're looking for the section that says the architectural committee cannot grant that variance.
No, that's not what it is. It's what, I'm sorry, I got it. Oops, I lost it here. I have to make it bigger. Variances is section 9 of the CC&Rs. It says the committee may allow reasonable variances and adjustments of these restrictions in order to overcome practical difficulties and prevent unnecessary hardships in the application of the provisions contained herein. Provided, however, that such is done in conformity with the intent and purposes hereof, and provided also that in every instance such variance or adjustment will not be materially detrimental or injurious to other property or improvement in the neighborhood or subdivision. So if there is some reason as to, I guess, what the intent and purpose was, and which I'm not sure we're clear on, as to why that elevation was listed in the original CC&Rs, and if there's any reason why that should no longer be taken into consideration, and we have substantial proof as to why we don't need to consider that, that may be something the board can consider as proper justification.
So I have a question real quick. John brought up the rule description. The rule, you go to one item line 7, but you go to another line item 3.2, and he's trying to say that number 7 is the rule, and that somehow some additional words got added, the 100-year flood level per FEMA. And I have gone to the committee, I have spoken to literally every person in Riverside County to show that our lot, and at 138850, we are not even in a 500-year flood zone at that elevation.
So when it was originally written in 68, that's the reason why I'm assuming that they picked that elevation, and now everything has changed, because even the overflow, before it would ever flood at that level, we're at a 500-year flood, not a 100-year flood. So the rule is old, is basically what we're saying. It just was written a long time ago. It would flood, it would flow over the spillway before we would even flood out our backyard.
So then let me go into that, yes. So the question I have, you're saying we would have to prove some sort of hardship. We have a flat level lot that all we're trying to do is build down and create a area, whether you, I mean, clearly they say they could approve a non-habitable, so it would be the same as if I wanted to make it habitable. That would go to the backyard, which would then flow onto the water, which most properties do. So how would I justify any sort of hardship when all I'm trying to do is not have a split level or tri-level house, because I don't want to be conducive or have that kind of, you know what I mean? I guess that's my personal interest, and I understand that. But how do I prove a hardship on a 100% level lot that I'm just trying to build down towards the water?
I think that is your challenge. You're on a man-made peninsula from the origination of this community, and every other house around you has probably built and met the specification here. And like you said, you're not going to be able to find some unique property around your lot that's different from anybody else around you. So I think it's a foregone conclusion, that's going to be hard to do.
Well, and I'm sure that if I went to every house and every backyard and every lot and pulled every plan, there is probably thousands of houses that have their lower finished floor below $1397.50.
There may be things that are built in this community that are not according to the rules, not with our condolences or our approvals,
Yeah,
though,
no,
and
and
that's
I
the problem.
understand that. So I'm just trying.
This is our guideline.
Yeah.
And until we get a vote of the community that's greater than 2/3 in favor of, this remains our
No, and
guideline.
I understand that. So if in the rule, it says that 1397.50 is a 100-year flood,
Well,
but
that's
the
not the rule.
100-year flood
Let me make a clarification on that. If there's a conflict between what's in the rules and the CCNRs, the CCNRs control. A rule can't override a specific provision within the CCNRs.
We assume that along the way, when somebody decided to write this thing in a rule book, that they decided to embellish what 1397.5 meant. It's not embellished here. It just is a fixed flat number, says this is what it must be, period. And this is the governing document that everything has to be abiding by.
So PC 3.2
Even if we think it's a
is
great
not-
idea and we like it, this is what we have to live by.
So PC 3.2 is a
Just a rule.
architectural, or it's a rule in the
Just a rule.
CCNRs?
No.
It's not the controlling document. CCNRs are really the primary controlling document, and from there we develop policies and rules and that. So, but the controlling document is the CCNRs.
Right.
And let me be honest, if it was strictly up to me and what if I had my magic wand and could just make a document, I'd be voting for you in a heartbeat. The trouble is we have the constraints of the CCNR and the governing documents.
Okay, so what would be the next step at this point, since clearly this is not going to get approved or overturned or anything? What would be our next step? Because the hardship, and I don't know how you prove a hardship, and I mean.
At this point, it's financial.
But
We've got $50,000 invested into this, into our plans that now we can no longer build on the lot.
I was commenting about this earlier, but just the idea maybe is that you have a house that's built, that when you walk out from the bottom floor, you walk straight out into your patio where your pool is, and that can't happen because of this restriction. So the solution is raise the house. And that may not be what your desire is, but that's the way you fix this, is by making the bottom of that bottom floor at the 1397 number, and then you do stair steps down to your pool and your patio. And again, the pool and patio have to meet conditions, but that's the solution for the house, is just raise the elevation on the base floor of the house. Probably not the answer you want to hear, but
Well, it's just not possible because the lot is flat. So the only way to do that is to literally just build a 2-story house and then have my bottom floor go 40 stairs down to an area that would be conducive to the water.
And in some ways, you have a 2-story house. You just have one that's hidden behind and down below. If you build it the way you want, now you won't have that. You'll have one that's elevated, and depending on how much elevation, I'm not sure what the surface flat level is at Strawberry Lane, but if you had any ability to go down, if it's not 1397.5 at your current grade, you might be able to go down 5 feet, 10 feet, I don't know.
I'd just like to say that there are a number of things in our CCNRs that we'd like to see changed. One of the things is that the community has 20 different CCNRs or something, and we'd like to consolidate them. And when you said what can be done, this is a long-term thing. We've never been able to figure out how to get 2/3 of this community to vote for a change to our CCNRs. We're lucky to get 25% to vote for the things that we get voted for. So that's why some people like to say you can't change the CCNRs, and I think that's part of the reason that the legislature did that, was that they wanted to make sure that the whole community was behind a change. This looks like a change that could be argued and justified, but it takes a change in the CCNRs, which is a very long-term process, and a justification.
So another hardship, right?
Well, it's a I'm with Dale. I mean, if I had, because we talked, and I thought the 100-year floodplain was the key thing, and I thought, if we were to go and try to change the CCNRs, and I think that's a 5 to 500-year process, honestly, because there's so many things about this community that people don't want to change, that we could go back and we could re-look at that, because it seems to make sense, but that's just not something that we can do. This board can change the rules, and that's why the CCNR trumps the rules. See, if it was our call, we could just change it. We could say, well, we think this is a good idea, but we don't get to do that. It has to be a vote of the membership, and it has to be 2/3.
If I could find a way to make it happen, I would do it in a minute. This is one where I totally understand what your passion is. I understand what your dream is. It makes me very sad that the CCNRs don't appear to be as flexible as I'd like in this, but that's just the way it is.
Well, even the two different entities, the city and the HOA, to be honest, I mean, clearly they're two different entities and you don't communicate, but one trumps the other and neither one even has a remote closeness of ideas for building. I'm surprised actually that the community has built how it has, because it's just not like the setbacks. One has one setback, one has another. One has this, one has something different. I mean, we were even told in the meeting that if the architectural committee hadn't have caught this, the city of Canyon Lake would have. And that is not a true statement, because my plans are almost approved from the city. So.
And one other thing that maybe you do know, maybe you don't know, but our community isn't guided by one set of CCNRs. There is a separate set of CCNRs for each and every tract. So while many of the items inside a CCNR are similar, there are some differences from one to another. So you might have a neighbor you could see across the street, and they could have a CCNR that maybe allows them to do something that you can't, or vice versa. And our goal also as a board is to try and consolidate it into one master CCNR so that everything will be under an umbrella and everything will be more uniform and universal. But again, that's not where we're at today. We're trying to get there, but the hurdle to get a CCNR changed is great, and we need members of the community to participate in order to make that happen, and we haven't been able to get that to happen yet.
The other thing I'd like to say, and I believe I said this to you already, is that the building department's role is to provide for public safety. It has to do with fire, has to do with flood, earthquake, building so that people are safe in their buildings. The POA, our ACC rules have to do with the appearance of this community and how it's cared for. And it really doesn't have anything to do with public safety. It has to do with how we want to look. And so they are two completely different entities, and it doesn't surprise me, and I built here, it doesn't surprise me that the regulations appear to be conflicting. But when you think of them in those two different perspectives, I think it might help with understanding.
Just curiosity, do you know what the flat level elevation is on your lot currently? You're right now at curb level. What is that elevation on Strawberry?
No, it's.
Well, in order for us to move up to get to the 1397, we'd have to go 20 feet higher. I don't think that's correct.
And I mean, 1397 would have to be at least where your grade is right now or below that.
We're above it.
No, 1397.
It would be.
On here, 1397 is like the middle of our house. So it would be, we would. Well,
Starts in the backyard, doesn't it?
Well, this is just showing that 1397 is here. So you have to think of the top floor. What's on top of this 1397?
Right.
If your eyes are real good, you can look on page 142. There's a plot plan, and I believe that there's one number there that's 1,400 is the elevation of the lot, or at least it's the elevation of the sidewalk that goes down the side of the house.
So 1397 is.
Right here. It's right here.
Yeah, so it's like.
So our level lot, because we're not grading much off the top, it's got to be right there, so.
Yeah. It appears, it's real hard to read because these, what I have is only the reduced thing. I don't have the big. Right. So it does appear that the first floor elevation is at 1,400.
And that's kind of what I would expect, is that when they built the community and they made these peninsulas out and they graded them flat, they probably graded them at or just above 1397.5, so that you would have a starting point that was at the level that they wanted you to be at, rather than that you would be then building down from there.
Got it. So
Again, and that was 50 years ago.
Yeah, no, I
But
understand.
until we can get the people of this community to change the way that they designed it 50 years ago, we can't do anything.
All the way down, well below 1397 to the lake.
Yeah, so we can only build up, is what he's saying. And we can do a basement that's non-habitable.
Then make it habitable after, like everybody else.
I just want to, my house is literally got the same grading plan as this. I mean, the garage is pretty much grade. Once I got past the garage, I had to start framing up from the ground. So my main floor, my first habitable floor, about half of it is wooden framed and it's framed up in the air. And down below, I have storage, and I'd almost like to get rid of the storage because my wife keeps finding things to store. But it is storage, so I totally understand your situation, but basically you can build your garage for the most part on firm ground with a little bit of grading, and then after that, the house is pretty much has to be raised, and the number of houses in Canyon Lake on the water that are built like that, there's pretty much, most of them have some of that raised first floor.
Okay, so we've kind of gone round and round about the same thing here, so I hate to be the person that's going to do this, but since we can't change
both of them, the next one, we don't even have to take.
Since we can't change the CCNRs, there's really nothing we can do other than follow the committee recommendations, send it back to the committee to see if they can help you resolve this. So that's my motion.
Do you have a second?
Could you repeat your motion, please?
Nothing to the POA.
My motion is to essentially follow the recommendations of the staff where they asked to have it sent back, to deny this and have it sent back to them to try and resolve with the homeowner.
Okay, I'll second that.
Any board comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Second item on the
5 in
agenda.
favor, motion carried.
The second item, because it doesn't, it's nothing.
One's related to the
Yeah,
other.
it does, they coincide with each other.
Understood.
I'll save you the headache and the heartache of reading.
They will work with you, I promise, as best as they can.
Would we like a motion for the final item for the minutes?
Do I hear a motion? John, can you just give us the recommendation, real brief review of their second case and what you recommend as a motion?
The second case was they want to put the pool in at 1388. In the lakefront section, section 9 at the back of the rules and regulations, there's a listing for waterfront homes having a pool. Pool can be put in at 1388. Unfortunately, they desire to have a vanishing edge pool, and we couldn't find out the exact height of the vanishing edge, but we understood from that they wanted 5 feet. So that means that the trough that collects the water would be at 1383. That just so happens to be the same height of a seawall, is 1383. And so that's where the seawall would be here, the trough elevation would be here, but you have a thing collecting, so they were going to have the water below the seawall height. This particular home, they're not planning a seawall. The last statement in the waterfront section says that a vanishing edge pool, the lowest elevation that you can have is 1388.
And is that a rule or a CCNR?
That's an item for discussion. The committee has always felt, well, it hasn't felt. The committee, I was on the committee back in '05 when water company previously did not allow any waterfront homes to have pools on the lake, on the water company's property. There were none built. There was a conflict at that time and with some people building pools without a permit, so they stopped construction on those projects. And the legal team that we had at the time got together with the water company and they came up with that section.
So the 1388 is pretty much an agreement with the water company. That's
Well,
bottom line what's
that's where
driving.
it gets questionable. The lawyer, the manager.
I'm sorry, people here, but the question was, what is the recommendation? The staff recommends that the Board of Directors deny the members' appeal and send them back to comply with a completed application and plans per Section 6, application process, PC 5.13 and PC 10.7. So-
I'd like to move that we table this application pending resolution of the house plan, because this whole thing may change depending on what they decide to do, if they decide to build on the lot.
Right.
So I suggest my motion is to table.
Oops, I second that.
Any comments? Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So
You guys were very good sharing tonight.
So are you
Oh, me and Tom?
tabling the house?
Nope.
Okay,
Tabling the action.
We denied the house,
okay.
and we tabled the pool.
Yeah.
Because, they may come back and decide they're going to build a two-story house, and
And
they're
that
going to put their
changes this.
pool down there where they want to put it, and then we can get into a discussion about, once they
Okay.
do that, they may raise the thing up so there's room for the trough.
Right.
So there's no reason to deny this or ask them to go back and resolve it when the house isn't resolved. That's how I felt about it.
So the 1388, just to finish up, the manager of what was then called the ACC, which became the planning compliance
They
section.
walked out.
Okay.
It's over.
Yeah.
We either deny it, we have no basis to deny it, except because they don't look like they're interested anymore.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
President Welty, I just want to make one clarification that was brought to my attention, is that we have a typo on our next meeting date. It's Monday for the joint meeting, not Tuesday, January 13th.
The joint meeting with the city is Monday.
And EVMWD is Monday, January 13th at 6 o'clock in this room, and we'll have notice by Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do I hear?
By notice, you mean agenda? Or will we
Yes.
have an agenda for this meeting?
Yes, we will
Okay.
have an agenda for the Board of Directors by Thursday, and I think theirs is up maybe a couple days later.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.